How's it going, you awesome bunch of bakers? I hope you're having a great day so far. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're making chocolate cookies, so let's go to the kitchen and get started. I don't think I had ever made cookies before I tried filming this video, and it did take me a couple of tries to get these right. But with a little bit of research and some help from one of my subscribers, this is the result. A nice, soft, chewy chocolate cookie, which is exactly how I like it. It's an overnight recipe. We'll leave this in the fridge to get some extra flavor out of it. And it uses browned butter, which gives it a toffee-like flavor that goes really well with the soft texture. So let me show you how to make them. Starting with the ingredients, we'll need some white bread flour, yeah, you heard me right, bread flour, some baking soda, a little bit of salt, some sugar, an egg, vanilla paste, more sugar. You can use a mix of sugars, you can use any sugar that you want. We'll also need some butter and some chocolate chips. Again, you can use dark chocolate, milk chocolate, whatever you like. I use half milk and half dark. And of course I use half white sugar, half brown sugar. I like that kind of balance of flavors. And last but not least, we'll need one ice cube, but more on that later. Okay, as for the equipment, we'll need a tray or two, lined with some non-stick paper. We need a bowl or two for mixing the dough. We'll need a small pan for browning the butter. We'll need scales and a whisk. And I think that's about it. Not much equipment needed here. Okay, first things first, let's start by browning the butter. Place the butter in the pan, set the pan on medium to high heat, leave the butter to melt and bubble away. You don't have to stand there and stir it, but I was in the kitchen so might as well do it. What we're trying to do here is to brown the milk solids contained in the butter, which will give it a beautiful nutty flavor. But in order to fry the milk solids, we need to get rid of the liquid in the butter. And that's where all the bubbles are coming from. It is the water evaporating from the butter. Now as soon as it stops actively bubbling, the water is gone. And that is when the milk solids start browning. From this point, you don't want to keep it on the heat for very long. Definitely no more than half a minute. As soon as the butter is nice and brown, pour it into a bowl with the ice cube that I mentioned earlier. The ice cube serves two purposes. It cools down the butter quickly, and it replaces the water that evaporated during the browning process. We want some water in this recipe. It'll make the dough more glutinous, resulting in a chewier cookie. Okay, pop the butter in the fridge. You want to leave it in there until it's almost set. Let's prepare the rest of the recipe. First, combine the flour, the salt, and the baking soda, and give it all a good mix. Make sure the ingredients are dispersed evenly. Okay, place that on one side, and then in a separate bowl, combine the white sugar, the vanilla paste, and the egg. Then grab your whisk and whisk until the mix is nice and pale and thickened. If you're gonna do this by hand, it'll take around 5 minutes. If you have a mixer, please use it, because doing this by hand is just tedious. I can't tell you how much I hate whisking by hand. I think it's just so ineffective, and I have to keep switching my hands because my arms get tired. Or maybe that's just me. And regardless of how you do it, once your mix is nice and fluffy, nice and thick, it's ready. Grab your butter out of the fridge. It did take about 15 minutes to cool down completely. What I'm saying is I didn't start whisking the egg right after I put the butter in the fridge. I waited a little bit. Okay, add the butter to the egg mix and then add the brown sugar. Whisk one more time until everything is nice and smooth. After mixing in the butter and the sugar, add the dry ingredients that we mixed earlier, the flour, salt and baking soda. Then grab a spatula and mix until there's no dry flour left. And finally, mix in the chocolate chips. I'm using cooking chocolate that I cut up with a knife. You can use chocolate drops if you want, anything goes really. This cookie dough will be super soft and loose, but don't worry, that's exactly how it should be. Do not start chucking in extra flour there. It'll be nice and solid the next day after it's chilled down overnight. It'll be very easy to handle and work with. So cover the dough up and pop it in the fridge for at least 24 hours or up to even 3 days. On the day of baking, preheat the oven 160 degrees Celsius, fan on, and that is 320 degrees Fahrenheit for my American friends. If your oven doesn't have a fan, increase the temperature by about 10%. And there you go, the cookie dough is nice and solid. Now we need to divide it into 12 equal pieces, which will weigh about 50 grams or 1.75 ounces. Shape the dough pieces into round balls, place them on trays with plenty of space between them. Let me quickly explain why we chilled the dough overnight. By letting the dough sit in the fridge, the flour had the chance to hydrate properly and develop some gluten, which will result in a chewier cookie. Also, there are enzymes in the flour that break down starch and convert it to sugars, which of course will boost the flavor of the cookie. Okay, my oven's not big enough to bake these at the same time. I'll place one tray in the fridge and we'll bake the other one right away. We'll see if there's a difference between them. Pop the tray in the oven for 15 to 17 minutes. I'm baking on the second lowest shelf. And it's worth noting that my oven only has one heating element, which is at the top, but I am using a baking steel as a base to bake on. All our ovens are different, see what works for you. As soon as the cookies come out the oven, sprinkle a little pinch of sea salt on them. It adds an awesome crunchy saltiness, and it really balances the flavor. I thought I'll pat it down so it doesn't fall off, but I don't think it did much. Anyhow, leave the cookies to cool down for at least 2 minutes before removing them from the tray, and then place them on a rack to cool down completely. Now we can leave these on the side and move on to the next tray. It's been in the fridge for around 20 minutes now. Let's see if it bakes up any differently. I do think it made a slight difference. These cookies came out just a little bit thicker than the first batch. So if you want a thicker cookie, leave the dough balls in the fridge for a little while after shaping and before baking. But definitely don't forget that sprinkling of sea salt. And if you're skeptical, try it at least on one cookie. It makes a huge difference. But there you go. That is how you make super tasty, chewy chocolate cookies. And I'm sure there's a million different ways of making a cookie. And I'm definitely not an expert on the topic, but these are some damn good cookies. If you've never made cookies before, definitely give these a go. But if you're a seasoned cookie baker, give us some tips down in the comments. I'm always curious to learn something new about things that I don't know much about. And while we're here, let me remind you that you can share pictures of your bakes in our Flickr group. It is a nice little community. You'll find the link down below. So what do you think this cookie recipe? Do you like chocolate cookies? What's your favorite cookie? Do let me know down in the comments. You want to see more videos like this one? Click over here. Subscribe to the channel, click right here. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.